everybody. I know it's been a long time since I've done a video. I've had a few people, or quite a few people, ask me when I was going to do another one and share some more content, information about the camper. And we haven't had a lot of adventures the past few months. We had one really big one. And we just got back from the Mojave Road, and we went to a campground in Maine in July. But nothing too big. I guess you probably think the Mojave Road from Maine is pretty big. The one big adventure we had was cross-country permanently. When we got back from our big trip in Maine, we couldn't stop talking about what a great time we had, how much we loved this part of the country, and how much we couldn't wait to get back here and do more adventuring. The problem was the drive home from California. That's where we ended in the Yosemite area. It was brutal. I mean, it's 4 days. It was 4 days to get across country, and we just didn't want to do that every year. We could fly out here and probably rent a Jeep, even rent an off-road camper, but I like my setup. I like to have it just the way I want it. Everything I plan, down to how many gallons of water I carry. I like it to have things just so. So the thought of renting something, it just didn't appeal to me. And to be quite honest, we were done with winter, with Maine winters, with dealing with 100 inches of snow a year. Did it for 50 some odd years, our entire life, and just didn't want to do it anymore. So here we are. We've moved to Laverton, Utah, and now we can adventure to 5 national parks within 3 or 4 hours of here. We couldn't be happier. So I'll tell you a little bit of an update about the camper and our couple of trips we took so far this year, and the one we just took on the Mojave Road. So in June, we decided we were going to move to Utah, and in July, we took our our last trip in Maine to Pemaquid Point Campground, probably our all-time favorite spot in Maine. The rest of the summer was spent prepping the house for sale, cleaning out 3 generations worth of stuff, dealing with the sale of the house, getting rid of my truck, our kayaks, and basically getting our life down to fit into a 35-foot truck. Then we had to decide where in Utah we wanted to live. We knew we wanted to live in southwest Utah. But we weren't sure exactly where. So we spent time looking at houses, finally settled on the one that we purchased here. Just before we left for Utah, I thought I'd lost a wheel weight on the camper. And you can see here I took the wheel off. Turns out I didn't. But hey, it was good practice for changing a flat on the camper. So the trip out here, we loaded up the truck. It was middle of September. Hooked up the camper and hit the road. And thank God for all the help from our friends and family. I just got to say that. Couldn't have done it without them. But the trip out here to Utah, it was pretty uneventful. Took us 3 13-hour days, I think, of driving, something like that. Along the way, we did lose the trailer lights the last day going over the Rockies. We blew a fuse in the Jeep for the tow package, and the reason that happened is because our camper cord and our chains actually hang too low. I need to fix that. I've actually repaired that cord 3 times now because it hangs so low. But it was a pretty good trip. We were pretty exhausted when we got here. I learned a valuable lesson that first night back in the camper into the yard. I burned the clutch up pretty good. Trying to back it up an incline, and realized 4 low would probably work better in the future, and it has. Valuable lesson learned there. We spent the next month and a half getting settled in. We explored the area a bit. Here we went down to Sand Hollow State Park, checked that place out. We explored some trails around this area in Washington County. Met a neighbor who was a member of St. George Jeepers, and we went on an adventure with them to go find some petroglyphs, some water glyphs, and yeah, we even saw an old Native American kiln where they made pottery. This is a water glyph here. And then we went to Zion National Park, spent some time there. An afternoon there. It was beautiful, no crowds in the fall. Yeah, so we just basically spent some time soaking in the area and getting to know the lay of the land. Here you can see an overlook for Laverkin, which is the town we live in. Went up there and checked out, tried to see our house. It was too small, too far away. But we started getting the itch for what we really wanted to do. And that was to go do some overlanding. So for Thanksgiving, we decided to hit the Mojave Road. It was a 2-night trip, and it's about 4 hours from where we are, I guess. Yeah, about a 4-hour drive. You can see here early on when we got on the trail, in this shot here, I'm just dropping it in a 4-low to get up over this. But you can see the cords, how low they're hanging, and that'll show you why I've had to fix that trailer cord 3 times now. So that's on my winter project list to get that fixed. So it was, the first day was great, cold, windy. The camper did a great job, and yeah, it took a beating too. More than once navigating S-curves. There were rocks in the trail that I missed with the Jeep, but the camper wheel caught the rock and it bounced pretty good. In fact, it knocked all the stuff out of the cupboards inside the camper and in the galley area. But yeah, no damage, just some stuff that fell out of the cupboard. So the first night we picked a spot, an abandoned homestead to camp at. And when we got there, I took this picture that I was going to send to my kids. And after I saw the picture, I was like, I'm not sending that to my kids, because honestly, it looked like something out of a slasher film. That's the picture here. So I neglected to shut the flash off on the iPhone, so that didn't come out very good. But no, it was nice. It was a great place to camp, despite the fact it was cold. Glad we brought our propane fire pit so we could warm up our Thanksgiving smoked brisket on it. And the next morning, beautiful sunrise. Cooked up a nice breakfast and headed out for the day to see lots of sights and drive lots of miles. Here's a picture of that abandoned homestead that we stayed. It wasn't really abandoned. The government took over the land when they set up this trail system and this preserve. So after breakfast and some great coffee, we hit the road. There was one bypass on the trail one obstacle on the trail that we decided to bypass. And it's called Watson Wash. And there's a picture of it coming up here that somebody else posted on YouTube. Here we go, right here. Tacomatose posted this back in 2020. Decided to bypass that. No sense taking unnecessary risk. And the holes were a lot deeper in 2022 than they were back in 2020. So yeah, if we were traveling with somebody else, we would have probably gone ahead and tried it, but not when we're traveling alone. Lots of cool things to see. We actually skipped some things. We missed the lava tubes because the national park website said the road was in really bad shape. I wish we'd read one of the most recent reviews on Trails Off-Road, though, because that one clearly pointed out that it was open and passable. So we did a check-in at the mailbox on the Mojave Road, stopped, and Amy cooked up some hot dogs for lunch. And then we headed out across the dry soda lake bed towards the Travelers Monument. And in this video and the one coming up, that you can see a Travelers Monument, you can see what's waiting for us in the distance. What I thought was wind blowing dust up into the air. It wasn't wind. But you'll see here the shot from the Travelers Monument, where people who take the Mojave Road, people bring a stone from home, wherever that is typically, and will leave it on the monument. So once we exited the lake bed and headed into what Trails Off-Road listed as fun sandy part, We also crossed into Bureau of Land Management land. And on BLM land, you're allowed to ride side-by-sides. So those dust clouds you see in the distance here, yeah, they weren't from the wind. They were from a lot of side-by-sides running around. And because the sun, by the time we got there, was so low in the sky, it made for some really difficult navigation. There are trails all through that sandy area, running all over the place. And the sun low in the horizon made it kind of a miserable hour of navigation. But then we came to the first Union Pacific Railroad bridge, took the customary photo underneath it, and carried on a bit further to find our campsite for the last night, which was along basically a dried up wash alongside the Mojave River. Obviously, there was no precipitation forecasted for within 100 miles of where we were. If there was, I would have chosen another spot. Next morning, we checked out Spooky Cave, which is nearby. That was pretty cool. If you go check it out, make sure you bring a headlight with you, because it goes way into the hill. And yeah, it's pitch dark in there. Here's us checking out one of the last slot canyons. And once again, here you can see the cords hanging low. That I need to fix. And then we hit there were two water crossings towards the end of the trail. The water crossings had been filled in recent years. And so they're not nearly as deep as they used to be, which is good, because I think if the water had come up to like the bottom of the doors on the camper, we probably would have gotten some water inside. But you can see here the water was probably only about 8 inches deep at most. But yeah, that was fun. Got to the end of the trail in Mannix, California. And then the last stop was in Baker, California to see the world's largest thermometer. So that's it. That's my update from Utah, everybody. Thanks for watching.